With this story, as we said earlier, it's been just over 7 months since rap superstar eNCA and Tebello Tibz Motsoane was shot dead in Durban. Police have since located the gun used and identified several suspects.
But, of course, at the same time, the mastermind and motive for the brutal killings are still unknown. But now, eNCA's father, Tony Forbes, speaks exclusively to eNCA senior reporter Dasen Thathiah about the family's journey thus far.
So, I know you asked me to call you Tony, but I can't help but feel like we should call you Uncle Tony because of...
Uncle T.
Or Uncle T, because that's who you've been to us, really, and how we've gotten to know you. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you making the time to chat to us. I think top of mind, you know, it's been 7 months now since Kenan passed away. Where's the family at right now from your personal perspective, and then the broader family as well? How are you doing?
Yeah, I guess it's the standard answer is we're okay. And I think we're okay. But it's very difficult. Still, in some ways, I feel it's even more difficult because I think after 7 months, you're sort of starting to get to that stage where, you know, life is carrying on now and things are becoming more quiet. And for me personally, at this point I feel the gap, the hole, you know, him not being with us anymore, even more. So we have, personally, I have my bad days, my very bad days, and I have better days. And I think it'll be like that for a while. You know, it wasn't just, you know, losing a child, but, you know, the circumstances and the emotional side is, you know, it's very much still there. The tears are very close. You know, anything can trigger, you know, an emotional sort of state. You know, so as a family, we continue to struggle, you know, with coming to terms with what's happened, the fact that he's not here anymore. We hear his voice every day. We hear the music, the videos, you know, and I think it's something to be grateful for that, you know, we continue to hear him. You know, he lives on in that way. But, you know, we now have more quiet moments, private moments where, you know, it's even more painful some days than, you know, in the beginning. I think in the beginning, we were very busy, you know. Now it's, you know, you're sitting. Some days you know, in the morning I just sit in my chair and just. What I do is I listen to the music that we used to love to listen together. Yeah. You know, and I think of him and.
What was that? What were you listening to?
So there's a lot of old school music, you know, and. No, like I listen to his music very often, but I also listen to the old school. Yeah. So the old school, a lot of that music is what I grew up with, and even my parents listened to it, and they played for me, uncles, and I used to play for Kenan, and it influenced. You know, if I mention some of the artists, you'll probably not know.
Try me.
Bread.
Okay, I did hear of that.
No, but you must know some of the music. Yeah. You know, like, you know Bread songs? Yeah. Baby, I'ma want you, baby, I'ma need you. That kind of genre, that kind of era. Cat Stevens.
So Kenan liked that music as well?
Yeah, yeah. Played it from Cat, you know, the Cat Stevens, Yusuf Islam, Billy Joel, George Benson, Stevie Wonder, and a guy named Jackson Brown is one of our favorite artists. So, but coming back to your question, we continue to struggle, and I think it'll be like this for a while. You know, it's not something that you just get over with, and I think we get better dealing with it. I think for me, I try to also now, you know, because there is a risk that one becomes almost paralyzed, you know. Yeah. It's just sitting with the pain. And what I've found is when I'm starting to think more about his life in terms of the impact, the things he did, you know, it sort of inspires me to go and do similar things in my life, you know, and I find some comfort in getting up and doing some of those things.
And I was going to ask you, what do you think has assisted your healing during this period? I mean, everyone has their own way. What's been your way apart from the music?
I would say, you know, like it's not healed, but what helps me is the music. You know, listening to it. So I put my earphones on and just sit on the chair and just listen to that music and I feel him close when I'm doing that. The music. I've conceived, I want to do a book.
Okay.
But it's a different book. I remember when a couple of days before the funeral, his friends came out, and colleagues and artists, and they, like solid, almost 2 to 3 hours, they all spoke about his journey with, their journey with Kenan. And I remember feeling proud and grateful in that moment, you know, although it was very painful and raw. And I remember that feeling, and the days when you know, when I go through difficulty, you know, and the one day I thought about it, what if I can have that feeling again? What if those stories could be in a book format, you know? And I actually, it's one of the projects I'm started on. It'll probably take a year or so to come to fruition, but the more I focus on doing those kinds of things, the more I feel more inspired rather than just sad, if you know what I mean. I'm also, personally, in my background being in software development, I've always been, you know, interested in how could I play a role in teaching young people to code, for example. So, and people, it's amazing how people come up to me, you know, to sympathize, and then when you chat, you find out some common ground. So I remember one of the people that came up was a lady involved with an NGO in Kailitsa, and I went to see them, and I'm actually finding, you know, like almost Kenan challenging me through his life and his example to go out and do those things that I wanted to do, and there is some healing in that. Talking to people about, you know, will you write me a story for the book? It's not so much just having the book at the end, it's the process. And I think the healing, for me, it helps me to be in, you know, if I didn't have those things, I'd be sad all day, you know. So that's how things that have helped me, yeah.
And, you know, as a grandfather, how have you been navigating, which I imagine is a difficult conversation with Cairo? I mean, you know, there will always be that loss, that void, that pain. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, look, I mean, Cairo is a very strong, resilient child. Also very, I guess, children are different. She speaks when she wants to speak about it. And the emotion comes out, you know, whether it's going to the grave, or she did a track at Joburg Day, for example. You know, she was very brave. She said, no one else is coming with me, I'm doing it alone. You know, but after that, the whole atmosphere sort of, you know, she got sad because she missed her dad in that moment, you know. So it's just being there for her when she wants to talk, and supporting her.
Do you find yourself now just sometimes thinking back at the time when you're listening to your music about his journey, where he came from, the path he followed? I mean, it was quite an interesting one. You were sharing some of it with me outside a little while ago. What are some of your strongest reflections from that time, especially the early years, that a lot of people may not know?
He was always doing a Michael Jackson performance, and my mother's house on a Sunday. It's a 2-story house, and we'd be sitting in the lounge, and then Kenan would come down the stairs and jump down, and then he would do a rendition of Bad. He had these white sneakers with orange laces, you know, and you know, so that was his early years, growing up, listening to music. You know, all the music, driving around in the car, playing the music, you know. Then I was still in control of the music, you know.
That didn't last long.
You know, so he grew up, and I think he had real passion for for the music. He grew up in an era of the Michael Jacksons, you know, the performance side, and he loved that. And those were his formative years. And, you know, and for me that was, and he grew up that way to the point where, you know, he saw that, you know, I don't know if it was a decision, but, you know, just naturally performing, being a musician, that was where he was going to go, you know. Growing up in Joburg, you know, he had this black hardcover book. Yeah. He'd be writing his rhymes. Even if he goes to the toilet, he would take that book with him.
Would he share that with the family?
No, it's his stuff, you know. So he was in primary school, early high school, through high school. You know, he was quietly, so it wasn't a surprise. Karaoke was, you know, yeah. So we spent a lot of time with music, and obviously for me that's the key influence in terms of where he was, you know, where he's ended up, and his career, no doubt.
I mean, as a parent, you hear, especially with other parents, and you hear these stories of how parents would say, get yourself a real job, you know, when we talk about the creative space. And it's quite a frequent thing. And especially since, I mean, we're talking here about the 90s at that time, really. Did you ever have that moment where you thought, okay, is this really going to be my son's career? Music, that is. Or was it because you came from that background that you accepted it and you actually motivated him to follow that path?
Yeah, we never had that moment where, you know, we said, get a real job. This was his chosen path, and we supported him from school. I mean, I remember at some he did an album while he was still at school, Standard 9. And I remember saying to him, Kenan, you can always do matric again later, man. Just go and do what you want to do. Pursue it. And he said, no, Dad, I want to finish school. And so we encouraged him. And, I mean, he put out an album, which is actually quite successful for 3 kids from school. Yeah. They got nominated for a Kora Award, the All Africa Kora Awards. So not at all. It didn't mean that, you know, we didn't put pressure on both of them to do their schoolwork and to apply themselves. I grew up.
Give them freedom of choice.
I grew up very academically, you know, studied, you know, after school. At school, I was very diligent, and so he used to say to me, Dad, you know, I hated you. You used to call me, especially when Western Province lost. Come here, let me see if you shine your shoes. But he said later on, you know, you realized that, you know, he said, no, I realized you were training me. You were. So, you know, we tried to have balance in terms of, you know, at that point. And I think it's right, you know, even if you're an artist, you have to be successful in a business sense as well.
Of course, yeah.
You know, so I'd like to think that, you know, you know, even if your kids are artistically inclined, that, you know, you have to help them to get the basics in place. School, if you think about it, was very important for him in the sense of except maybe for Kenan, it wasn't the academics, it was the networks.
Yeah.
You know, so the people he met whilst he was, in particular at St. John's. You know,
he enjoyed English, right?
Sorry?
He enjoyed English.
Oh yeah, oh, yeah. He was. Kenan was he was amazing at speeches. I remember one night he joined Toastmasters at St. John's. Okay. Lynn and I attended. Kenan's speech was just amazing. I mean, Kenan was very creative, the sense of humor, and he could speak, you know, and if you think about his music, you know.
It made sense. It was a perfect fit, right?
And I remember years later, coming back to the music, he said, Dad, if you didn't play me that old school music, I would not have learned to tell the stories in my music. So every track is a story, you know, and I think those you know, doing English, being part of Toastmasters, you know, it's all added up and contributed to his storytelling, you know, his storytelling ability, he could make a speech off the cuff. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but he was very talented at imitating. So he'd do the Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Mr. Bean, very, very good. I mean, I don't know if you've seen clips where he imitates the accents, the Nigerian accents. Very, very good, and a great sense of humor. So he could have been an actor. He could have been, he interviewed, like you interviewing me, interviewed Ryan Giggs, and I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Man United was, of course, our other big passion.
You both supported Man
Yeah, unfortunately, I think now I should have supported the blue side of Manchester.
Yeah.
But that was early memories. We spent a lot of time. Watching Man United, particularly on a Wednesday night when Man United was still in the Champions League. Now they play on a Thursday night.
So when you look back, and 35 years, and most of it really successful, really in the public space, and I think as a country, there's been a massive appreciation for Kiernan and what he's achieved. When you look at it as a dad, and you look at what he intended to do and what he did do, where does that leave you? Do you think he managed to achieve most of what it is that he wanted to do?
We spoke a lot about father-son talk, particularly later years. When we die, we want to have lots of people at our funeral because we want to achieve greatness in our lives in terms of the impact on the world and people around us. And after 35 years, I think he achieved that.